Well, good morning, everyone. It is wonderful to see so many familiar faces and also some new faces. Uh, yeah, my name is Fugan, and I'm joining you today from Cape Cod, from Hyannis Zendo. And I know many of you have practiced with us out here, but for those who haven't yet come, please do. We're located right in the middle of the Cape in Massachusetts, Cape Cod. And I think I'll start by telling you what's happening out here, since we're all joining from so many different parts of the world. And it's really fall on Cape Cod all of a sudden. The ocean has become cold. The winds have shifted to the north. And the tourists are mostly gone, which is a blessing and also somewhat of a letdown. The osprey are also gone, which means a little bit more to us here. The cormorants have gone home. Plovers are gone. And we're starting to see these waves of migrating birds who stop in the Cape on their way south. And so our Zendo here we've been sitting together about 14, almost 15 years. We're a small affiliate of the Village Zendo. And our space that we've been practicing in has two big sliders that overlook a marsh and a teeny little woods that separates us from this saltwater marsh. And this year I spent a lot more time than usual out exploring that little bit of woods, that kind of wild space just outside the Zendo here. And in the spring, this space fills with blossoms and fragrances, and our Zendo also fills with that same experience. This marsh and these woods are really an intimate part of our practice here at Hyannis Zendo. The sounds of the insects in the spring coming out, all the pollinators, we really are aware of them here. And by summer, that area is completely full. It's bursting with green. As you come into the Zendo, you pass basically through it, and as we sit, we feel this green just sort of invading us. We get the marsh life is full by summer. There are birds everywhere. If you walk out there, you're inundated with smells and insects everywhere, spiders. And this year there was a fox den out there. There are thick brambles and prickers and bushes that will grab you and hold you in place. There's old trees and new ones that are fighting for sunlight. And it's a small space, but it's endless. You can be out there endlessly, and it's always new. And we often do outdoor kinhin here, which is one of the ways that we feel this nature. And when we sit with the sliding doors open, that vibrancy is palpable. And now that we've entered the fall, it's changing dramatically. The branches on the trees are becoming bare. The trees have stopped sending their sap out, and they are thinner. The clinging vines and bushes are not grabbing so much. They're wilting away, and we can now actually see the marsh through the trees, and we could even glimpse the ocean that is just beyond the saltwater marsh. And so the deep summer green has dulled a little. It's faded. It's faded to orange in some spots and brilliant red in others. And there's now a space and a coolness, a breeze that comes through. And instead of this incessant wall of sound that we get in the summer of birds and insects, we hear farther away. We can hear, last night, for instance, we heard these screech owls calling to each other from across the marsh. We could hear the waves breaking on the shore. And to me, it feels like right now the marsh is breathing out. It's releasing the energy of summer. And in this release, there's a sense of space. Quite literally, the space is opening up. This sense of letting go. And for some reason, all this month, I've felt that that space is also instructing me, reminding me to let go, to breathe out, to release a little bit of what I'm grasping and holding on to. I feel this during meditation, but also throughout the day, this clinging feeling. I remember, okay, this is the time to breathe out, to let go. And there is, of course, a lot for us to hold on to right now. You know, we're engaged, all of us, in this political struggle, whether we want to be in it or not. And this is defining this moment and this place. And the idea of we and them is everywhere. And it seems like sowing division is the strategy this political season. And so as practitioners, we're also called to bear witness to the suffering of the world, to the conflicts exploding on our screens and in our hearts, this violence and hatred and the fear that's causing so much trauma for people near and far in the US, in the Middle East, in Europe, all over. And as we watch ourselves during zazen and throughout the day, we can see the seeds of greed, anger, and ignorance, our grasping, our clinging, pushing away, our othering, or our feeling that we are others from the community, our mindless reacting. This is all being watered. And so breathing out feels like a powerful tool that we can use to let go. Let go of what we're holding, what we're dragging around, or maybe what's dragging us around. And so like this little woods and marsh next to the Zendo, we can breathe out and allow a space to open up in us. Letting go, space is there. And breathing, of course, is primary to our zazen practice. It's the first tool we use, and it's always there when we sit down. We begin zazen, whether you're following your breath, counting your breath, doing shikantaza or koan practice. We all begin by paying attention to our breathing, attending to our breath. We let our concentration drop down to the hara, the space just below our belly button, and we notice breathing in, the belly expands. Breathing out, releasing. Expanding with the in-breath, letting go with the out-breath. This opening and letting go over and over, in and out. And this is the first thing we teach in meditation, the first thing we learn. And really, it's the first thing we do in our lives. We breathe in when we're born. And the last thing we do in our lives, we breathe out. The Japanese word for breathing is nisoku. And there's two characters, ni, to enter, to go in. It's also part of to attain, to awaken. and soku, breath, conquered, being in concordance, harmony. And the character for breath is quite beautiful. It's got the heart mind, shin at the bottom, holding it together. And on top, there's the character for insight and self. And breathing out is shusuko. And the first character, shu, is to start, the origins, coming out, also being born. And the kanji at the bottom of that is an open mouth or an open container. And on top of that, a mountain or a temple, right? Our true abode, our true home. And so in Zen, we don't encourage any special breathing practices. Right? Instead, we follow the natural cycle of our breath effortlessly. When we breathe a deep breath, we're aware that we're breathing in a deep breath. When we breathe in a shallow breath, we're aware that we're breathing in a shallow breath. And if we try too hard, we get caught. Our breath becomes caught. And I vividly remember sitting in sesshin early on in my practice and really trying with all my energy to follow my breath. And day after day, I felt that as I was doing this, I could breathe less and less. I just had this feeling I was being constricted. I even had this sense just below my sternum that I had this pain. I couldn't breathe in. And so I tried harder and it got worse. Eventually I asked a teacher, I said, what can I do? And she said, just don't try, just breathe out. And almost at once, I could breathe. And as we relax in our practice and learn to let go while we breathe, our breathing naturally deepens. And we may start by noticing in or saying to ourselves, in with the in-breath, out with the out-breath. And then we can let that go and soften into it, like sunlight on a sprout, right? This kind of tending to our breath, expanding and releasing, just the flow. And I think it's telling that Dogen in Fugan Sensei, the universal way of zazen for everyone, he simply says, breathe gently through your nose. That's the extent of the instructions for breathing. Watching the breath is simply being present to breathing. Suzuki Roshi said, if you think I breathe, the I is extra. There is no you to say I. What we call I is just a swinging door which moves when we inhale and when we exhale. It just moves, that is all. When your mind is pure and calm enough to follow this movement, there is nothing. No I, no world, no mind, nor body, just a swinging door. And there's a koan that speaks to this flow and really our tendency to get in the way of it. Luoshan asked Yantou, when arising and vanishing go on unceasingly, what then? Yantou shouted and said, whose arising and vanishing is it? In sitting, arising is clear. Thoughts arise. We rehearse our stories, our memories, our planning and emotions are all arising one after the other. Breathing in and breathing out, we can let go. We feel them vanishing. And then again, stories, emotions come, breathing out over and over. And then suddenly, bong, bong. Just this. And then later a headline shows up on my phone. Oh, yes, wonderful, excellent. This is what I've been waiting for. Or, oh no, this is exactly not what I'm waiting for. Right? We walk around so full, right? We're almost bursting. We're dragging around mountains of ideas, a mountain of karma, and breathing out, letting go, right? Over and over, arising and vanishing. It's like a leaf sprouting in the spring, growing lush in the summer, turning orange in the fall and letting go, arising and vanishing. And of course, for us, old age, sickness, and death are arising and vanishing. We experience it in our bodies, in the bodies of those we love. Thich Nhat Hanh tells a beautiful story of observing the autumn, of watching leaves falling and thinking about death. He says, I asked the leaf whether it was afraid to fall since it was autumn and the other leaves were falling. The leaf told me, no, during the whole summer and spring, I was very alive. I worked hard and helped nourish the tree, and much of me is in the tree. Please do not think that I am just this form, because this leaf form is only a tiny part of me. I am the whole tree. I know that I am already inside the tree, and when I go back to the soil, I will continue to nourish the tree. That's why I do not worry. As I drop from the branch and float down to the ground, I will wave to the tree and tell her, I will see you again very soon. Thich Nhat Hanh is not afraid. The leaf is not afraid. Luoshan, the monk, though, he was afraid. When arising and vanishing go on unceasingly, what then? What then? Everything is always arising and vanishing, just like this. Our lives, all the things and people in it, nations and dynasties arising and vanishing. And yet the monk asks because he is suffering like us. He feels separate from this flow and he's scared. And Yantou shouts, that's his answer. He shouts. It's like the birds calling in the marsh. It's like a message coming up on your phone, that chime. When you hear the Han calling us to the Zendo, I think of each of those box as Yantou shouting, wake up. He didn't leave it there though. He didn't just shout. He didn't just cut things off. He says, whose arising and vanishing is it? Hey monk, are you separate? Hey you, are you separate? Right? This beautiful growth, abundance, this terrible falling away. When another monk, Ryuyan, asked Yantou, what is the fundamental constant principle? Yantou replied, moving. Ryuyan then asked a similar question to Luoshan. When moving, then what? Right? Then what? And Yantou said, you don't see it. You don't see the fundamental constant principle. You don't see it because you're not separate, just moving, just arising and vanishing. Yantou's life coincided with a turbulent period in China, and towards the end of his life, there were bandits apparently rampant in this late Tang dynasty. And all the monks had fled from his monastery, but Yantou stayed. And a bandit came, and finding nothing to steal, he was enraged, and he stabbed Yantou. And just before he died, Yantou shouted. And this shout could be heard for 10 miles around, arising and vanishing. Bach, Wake up. Do not squander your life. A Zen verse says, in the spring months, the flowers bloom. In the autumn season, the leaves fall. If you can understand in this way, what donkey legs would you move? Arising is just arising, vanishing just vanishing. Tend to each fully, with nothing left over. If we abide in arising, we get stuck in form. If we abide in vanishing, there's only nothing. And then how could we fulfill our vows to save all sentient beings? And Dogen said, just breathe gently through your nose. Writing about miracles, Dogen said, a mustard seed, right? A mustard seed, a teeny mustard seed, breathes out Mount Sumeru. A tuft of hair, right? The most ordinary thing. A tuft of hair breathes out the great ocean. He calls these miracles. And they are miracles, like fetching water or gathering wood. Those are miracles. Driving your car, sending a text, making a coffee. And not swept away by arising or vanishing. Just breathing in, breathing out. And then, how can I help? So I'm going to finish with a verse from Chanting, from the Book of Serenity, and I'm including a couple of Wansong's added phrases. Just the time to flip over and breathe out. Wind polishes, clouds wipe. Even the finest dusts must be removed. The waters are chill, the weather is autumn, forming one whole. Thank you for your practice.